Hi, in this tutorial we're going to look at a way that we can do a staff announcement system for morning registration so that we can show the students what the announcements are that are pertinent to them. So if you're in charge of doing class registration for Year 7 class, you will only see the announcements which are relevant for that class, rather than seeing the announcements for every other year and the whole school ones, etc. So to do that, there's a couple of steps that we need to go through, and I've highlighted them here for you. You need to create a Google form to collect the announcements from the staff. You have to then use Google Sheets to store those announcements. Then we're going to use the same Google Sheet in order to filter the announcements so that we can use them in step 4, which is a Google Data Studio, which is a nice new tool from Google to visualize data. And then we'll tie everything all together on a Google site. So step number 1 is creating a Google form. So when you create your form, you're going to give it a title. I call mine announcement system. And the first question is, who is the announcement for? So list all of your school years and key stages, and then a final one called all, so that you can do a whole school announcement. Then question 2, title of the announcement. And I've put on here some response validation so that the announcement title doesn't get too long. So I've put 30 characters maximum there, and I've also made this a required field, the same as I have done here for the drop down. Then you've got the announcement itself, which is required, and I've paragraph styled that one. Then we've got a URL for further information if they want to include that. Short note on here, and I'll put it in the description as well. Pretty self-explanatory. You have to include the HTTP or the HTTPS, etc. before the www. or the URL won't work with Google systems. I found that out when I was using the old system of awesome tables. And then finally, we want to have 2 dates. So when do you want the announcement to start, and when do you want the announcement to end? Sorry, I switched over to Welsh then again. And these need to be required fields as well. So if we have a look at how that Google form looks, I'll choose a Year 8 announcement. We'll do test. And I want this to start when we come back to school after Easter maybe. And we'll have it finishing the week after. And submit. Okay, so that's our announcement system in terms of Google Forms. And these are our responses. So in the Google form then, if you click on this button here, you will be able to create a Google spreadsheet. And I've started mine here. I've taken off the bracket responses and then we'll close bracket. And this is how it looks. So we've got form 1 responses. These are the responses here. And then I've created, if you click new and call your sheet data, here's my data sheet here. So I've simply formatted row 1 so that it's vertical text and blue with some bold white writing. In A2, I've put a new formula called equals now, and I've formatted the date using format number, and I've flipped it around so that it is British numbers, 26th of the 9th rather than 9/26. And then I've done the same on the F and G columns as well. So these are now 27th of the 3rd rather than 3/27. That way then we can compare these dates in these columns here against this column here. So in order to pull through this data from form responses into this form, so when I do an update here, it automatically pulls through into here eventually. We have to add a new formula in here. So in A3, we'll do a query, form responses 1, cell A2 to G. So if we look at that formula here, we're pulling through A2 to G, and it will pull through all the data for time immemorial based on however many announcements you have. It'll pull every single one of them through. Then this is where we start to get interesting. We're going to do an array formula based on the contents of this cell here and this cell here. So we start with a title, which will go into the second row in the H2 cell. And we say if B3 or any of the other cells in column B pertinent to that line there are blank, then we write nothing in the box. Otherwise, if A2, which is today's date, is equal to or greater than this box here, then we'll put the word include, otherwise the word not. So the 27th of the 3rd has gone, as it's now the 30th, so we want that to say include. And we'll do exactly the same then for this column here, but we're just going to do a -1, so that we have today's date accounted for. So the 4th of the 4th is in the future, as today is the 30th of the 3rd, so we want to include this post on the data studio views. So the year 7, Welsh homework, remember the homework is due, blah blah blah. We want to display that between that date and that date. Does the 30th fall between these two dates? Yes, it does, therefore we want to include it. And then this third column here just looks at the H and the I columns to make sure that both of these say include. If they do, then this cell here will say include. Otherwise the cell will say not. We're going to use these inks and nots at a later date in the Google Data Studio views so that we can filter and make sure that the pupils only see relevant announcements if it's based on their year, but also relevant announcements if we want them to see them or not. Because there's no point displaying an announcement from September if we're in May, and so on. Next then, I've got a list here, the exact same list of years and key stages that I have in my Google form, and I have them in a new sheet. This is so that we can filter down. So if we want announcements for year 7 are in, obviously, year 7, but the year 7 group are also in key stage 3, and any announcements that we select for all years and key stages, they will also be displayed to year 7. So the formula here, an array formula again, and we're looking at B7 or B3. This basically says, right, is it year 7, which is A2? Is it key stage 3, which is in list A5? Or is it or, which is list A12? If the answer in this box is one of those three things, then we want to say yes, include it. Otherwise, don't include it. So on year 7, it's been included because year 7 is in year 7. Yeah, the exact same thing then for year 8. Do we want to display in year 8 messages? Yes, we do, but we don't want to display the year 8 message in year 7 because it's not in year 7, it's not in key stage 3, and it's not in all. So what I'll do with all of these array formulas and different formulas, I'll put them in the comment section of the video for you, and I'll also put them on the website. What I'll also do is I'll make this Google Sheet copyable for you so that you can just make a copy and then copy paste, or just use that sheet and then point to it from your Google form. Okay, so this is Google Data Studio, and as I click on one of these, you will see that I've just used this AdWords overview template and I've edited it slightly so that I can use it for the announcement system. But just to go back over our checklist a second, we've done the Google form, we've done the Google Sheet, we've done the filtering, and we're now up to Google Studio. So I will show you the Year 7 Gwyndy campus. So as you can see, standard black background from that template. I've customized the header template so that it says Year 7 announcements for the Gwyndy campus. We've got who is the announcement for, the title of the announcement, and then we've got the announcement details. And then we've got the school logo, and then down the bottom for when it's in full screen mode, if there are more than 20, etc., or more than 10, we can then paginate between them. So in order to set this up, what you need to do is create a table, and you need to select the data source, and the data source for mine would be the announcements system in Google Sheet, but it's going to be the data tab. And then you need to set up some filters. So I want the dimensions of who the announcement is for, the title of the announcement, and the details of the announcement. I found that we didn't need the URL field as well, so I've taken that off. It was hardly being used. So keep it on yours if you like, but we're only using these 3 columns, and it automatically puts in the numbers for you, so you don't need to worry about that. Then down the bottom, we're doing a sort based on who the announcement is for, so that you're grouping them then based on the key stage, year, and all. And then we've got a table filter at the bottom for this particular table. So if I go into that and edit it, I've got on mine now, include Year 7 Gwyndy is equal to Inc. But on yours, I would just say Year 7 is equal to Inc. and global is equal to Inc. And that, in a nutshell, is it. I'll show you another one. I'll show you the Year 12 one. We'll go up to edit. Click on the table. So the exact same dimensions and sorting, and then on the table filter, I've just swapped the year there to Year 12 rather than Year 7. So Google Sites, I'm not going to show you how to make a Google site as they're pretty much self-explanatory. It's drag and drop, and you can hyperlink onto any of the images or text. So this is an example of our learners area. So we've got all the standard Google G Suite icons, and then further down here we've got some custom made icons for the announcement system. So if you have a look at the Year 7G that I showed you earlier in the video, students will click on that and they will have this view here. The exact same goes for the staff website then. Apologies, that's the old school. On the staff portal, we've got the announcement system, although it's not really a system, it's a collection of tools. So they can view, just like the students, a particular year group or campus view, but they also have the add announcement, which will take them to the Google form, which I've embedded into the Google site. And then something else which is rarely used but is still quite handy, we've got edit announcements, and this is using an awesome table. So any previously made announcement can be edited, so that when you click on edit the record, it will open up that particular record, and then you can make amendments to it, which is a pretty handy tool to have if you make a mistake, or if you need to change the year group or change the dates. Rather than having to duplicate the dates and duplicate the information time and time again, you can just come back into your original post and then edit your dates. So in a nutshell, now we have done a Google form, we've imported the information and stored it in a Google Sheet, we've filtered that sheet, we've used Google Data Studio to display the announcements for a particular year group, and then we have tied it all together using Google Sites. I hope the video was of help. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll include that on the website, and if you need any help getting started, I'll be more willing to help you.